All right, y'all, it's the countdown to spring. We're starting to get super close. Well, maybe not for everybody, but for us, we are. And you may be excited about it. And if you're anything like me and you've been excited about gardening in the past and you just want to expand, but maybe we shouldn't. At least I'm not going to, and I'm going to show you why right now. I got a couple things going on in the garden. And first, before we get started, I got to show you why there's some bare spots in my garden. If you've been watching the channel for the past couple weeks, you know that it's just been dark and gloomy and really rainy here. And this was all radishes right here. And we actually had to pull up our radishes. I had to go ahead, and I hate that I couldn't do this on video, but we had to harvest one of our Brussels sprouts. By the way, it was an improvement from last year, so that's a good thing. We're going in the right direction. We definitely had a hiccup, but we're gonna keep going, keep moving. We still got 2 plants, so we'll see what happens. We had to get rid of a cabbage plant too, but you can see that we are indeed still in the right direction for this plant. And this one as well, we still have some, so we've got a little ways to go, but I'm happy. But what happened, all the rain and all the cloudiness and the cool weather, what happened was the garden decided to create white mold. I can't say the word, it's like a sclerotinia mold, I believe, but it's a mold that lives in your soil. And so I saw it on my Brussels plant and I was like, well, I'm just gonna leave it. And if I remember correctly, I've seen it in other years in the wintertime, I'm not real sure, but we had to take care of it. We had to pull everything out that's missing out of the garden because I didn't want it to fester and I didn't want it to get worse. So we pulled a couple things up, we just let it go. And now that we're getting these warmer, drier days, I've been coming out here every day, and it's been about a week and I haven't seen a single inkling of it at all out here. So what I did is I just pulled the plants, did not compost the leaves. I just kind of threw them out in the woods out there. And then I pulled up, if I saw it on the soil, I just grab a little handful of soil and get it out of the garden. I don't want that stuff in my garden. I don't want it to be a headache for me. So we decided to jump on top of it, and we maybe end up treating with some hydrogen peroxide if it comes back. But that's why you're gonna see some gaps and some empty beds. So I just decided to go ahead and just get started. This is the garden we're working with here. We've got 5 beds here in a greenhouse, and then over here, we've got 4 beds, and then we're building out a little container garden over here in this section. So we're kind of working in different areas and trying to do different things. And then right here we have our garden protector, Shari dog. So she's doing absolutely nothing but getting a suntan. So over the years, I started with this bed right here. And then the next year I put in 3 more beds. And then we had a bad hurricane and it knocked down all these trees right here. So I made an in-ground bed here. And then the next year we came through and we added this bed all the way in the back. And at the same time, we added the greenhouse. We had exponential growth as far as like gardening space inside of our yard, and that came with issues. So as I've grown my garden over the years, and I've gotten this question a lot if I plan to expand this year, and we addressed it on the Backyard Gardens podcast, but I don't plan to expand my in-ground or raised beds this year. I am going to kind of do a couple more pots this year, a few more containers, but I'm going to tell you why. And it's something that I think people can benefit from because it's easy as a gardener to just get like super excited. You start a garden and you start growing, and then the next thing you know, I need more. I want more. I love this. I'm hooked. It's like a drug. You know, it's like I want to grow more food. I really enjoy it. I enjoy, you know, the benefits and the bounties and all that. But sometimes it's good just to slow down and then take it step by step. So I've made a few mistakes when I've made my garden. A lot of times I get asked the question is, why did I put my garden here when I have all this land back behind me? And the reason is that's the septic system. So I was told not to put a garden on there. Probably could have put raised beds on there, but I didn't. the issue that came out of that is I have to run my water from all the way up there, all the way here. So that has been an issue over the years in my garden. And so as we kind of build out and we build more infrastructure back here, then we start adding more and more to the garden. So typically what I used was just like a sprinkler, and then I started making these. And these are just, if you have a smaller garden, this works out really well. It's like a grass pop-up sprinkler, and I put it on a tube, run a hose to it. And then like this one I mounted here, right? And so last year, as this got added in, I could not get water to this back bed via a sprinkler. And so as the water runs all the way from up here, all the way down, you lose pressure. And so the issue was I couldn't get it there, and then if I had 2 sprinklers, I wasn't able to get it. And so it was just a whole lot of back and forth and a lot of problem solving. If you live anywhere near the south, or hell, as for a matter of fact, anywhere in the country last year, you weren't going to get water from up above. That just wasn't going to happen. So I decided to try something new. And this is one of the reasons why I just really need to kind of not build out anymore and hammer in what I'm doing and get this under control, because I need to make it easier for myself, and spraying water all over the place wasn't the answer. Now, the elephant in the room. I have been known to outrageously deny drip irrigation, and I'm going to tell you why. I have tried it in the past. I've used soaker hoses. I've used like pre-made like rainbird systems and stuff like that. And then I came across some information, did a whole lot of studying over the summer, and you've probably seen it inside of my garden beds, but I haven't actually talked about it at all. And truth be told is I haven't had to use it a lot yet because we've had rain and it's cooler. So we are only watering like maybe once a week at this rate. We probably will have to water again this week, but other than that, we have not used this much. But I have been working very diligently on installing an entire drip system throughout my garden that I have created using pieces and parts from Drip Depot. It is not a pre-made system. I've had people ask me, I did not buy a pre-made system. I would not ever buy a pre-made system because my experience is it's just trash. And I'm sure you've got something that works for you, but for me in my garden, I have not found one yet that was worth it. Now the difference is the Rainbird system I bought was like 30 bucks. I don't even want to divulge how much this one was, but it was in the hundreds. So there is that. But I'll show you kind of what I've been doing over the winter, and I'll just pick a bed and show you. In this bed here, for instance, we've started running drip lines. And you can see it here. Each bed has its own on and off in case I don't want to water it. So I can turn it off. And then as I'm refilling the beds, I'm burying the drip line and going through. So like in this one, for instance, I put it in after I planted the carrots. So unfortunately right now it's just on top of the carrots. Now that will change when they're ready to be harvested, which we are pretty far off. The soil is still really cold. So you can see we've run this all the way through our garden. Every bed has it now. And even the greenhouse. So the greenhouse was a trick. And what I did with that is I drilled a hole in the base and ran the plumbing through. Then kind of the issue is getting the greenhouse watered as well. So what this is going to allow me to do this year, even though I'm not expanding my garden, I should be able to plant inside of my greenhouse in the summer, because the issue was it gets so hot it was hard to water. Well, now it's just a flip of the switch. So that is a big benefit to this, and it's been running in here. I've used it a lot in the greenhouse. One thing that I know is like I water and my new turnip seedlings that I had planted after the possum incident, which we'll do a video coming up soon on the greenhouse. They were wilting yesterday, turned on the system, ran it for 2 hours, boom, they kind of came back up. The problem is the top of the soil doesn't get moist, so I don't know the difference. Now that being said, that could help with my white mold issue. So there's more reasons than not to kind of do this system in my garden. Now, it took so long because I had to bury the water line and run it all the way up these beds, and then going to the other side of that, and then I buried another line, you can see right here coming up, and then we buried another line going here. And so this runs all the way from a faucet on this side of my house. And then from this side of my house, we have a line going through the woods and then running all the way in ground to the raised beds in the wild garden. And they are still in the process of being set up. I ran out of parts. I've determined that this is the system for me, which I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, for the couple $100 I spent, actually the couple $100, I think I spent $454 to be exact, total transparency moment. I'm gonna use this system and I'm gonna make it work. But there was issues I had with drip systems in the meantime that kind of hung me up on it. So that was kind of the issue, but I think I've found a workaround. And so we'll see how that works. But once I get this in all the way and I really start using it and I find out if I really like it, then I'll go through and I'll talk to you guys how I built it and all that stuff. But you can see now, like in the raised bed, how it's just laying on the surface, and we're in the process of wrapping it up at this point. Pieces and parts all over the place, but you can see it's just laying on top, and then we're gonna bury it in, and same back here. So we're gonna do the same. Now I put this line in back here, and you can see where I kind of jacked it up. This pisses me off. I put all of the nozzles in going the right way, except for the last one. It goes down, so I've got to take this hose off and redo it. So that's been fun. Let's just put it that way. It's been fun. So that's one reason why I'm not expanding, is I want to just see how this works. I want to spend a year on it and see how it does and really get things going, get the proper amount of water to things, eliminate the headache, cut down the disease. And I did the math, and we are going to save about 50% water by doing this. So there is a big benefit to that. Now, there is a whole nother reason why we're not expanding. And I've said this in previous videos, but I'm going to show you again. And it just kind of goes back to why sometimes it doesn't help you to just rapidly expand your garden. I need to get my wild bed under control. So a little bit of history about the wild bed. It started off with nothing but in-ground beds, and it did great the first year, but it got overrun by weeds. And when I say overrun, I mean overrun. Like, you just couldn't stay on top of them. It was virgin soil. I mean, honestly, it was the first time it didn't even hit sunlight because all the trees were there. So then the next year we came through and we put, little landscape timbers down and topped off the soil, and it wasn't really as productive. And then last year we came in and we added these raised beds in. And so the raised beds did well, but there were still issues. And we had a major issue. We had soil compaction issues. And so if you remember, I came back and I did my sweet potatoes in this bed last year. And I mean, the soil was just harder than a set of woodpecker lips. You just couldn't get into it. So that being said, we knew at that time that we had an issue that we had to work on. So we decided again this year, we're going to work on this issue. And so without expanding our garden any direction, really, we can now focus on these key issues and get them under control before we decide to take something on. Because anytime you start a new bed, you don't know exactly there's always going to be some hiccups and stuff like that. And there just comes a time where you're just tired of having hiccups. So this was the sweet potato bed that was just kind of really jacked up, and we're seeing kind of the same things in the bed a little bit. The growth is not as vibrant and big as we'd want. So we know that we have some issues inside the bed, and that's why we've mulched it real heavy. We've topped it off with some topsoil and some soil conditioner. And I mean, when I came in here last year, at the end of the year, a couple months ago, if I took my finger like this and just pressed on it, I couldn't go in. And now we can start to get in a little bit more. So we are in fact working on our soil compaction. So we can get, a couple inches deep. Now, to put that into perspective for you, let's go over to this garden and just do a little test. Let's see if I just lean my weight onto it so you can see the difference, like my hand stops it. We've got some work to do. Now, what are we gonna do? How are we going to keep this process moving forward? Well, one is we're gonna keep it well watered. By having the in-ground system, my thought process is it'll keep the soil moist on the inside, which would help with decomposition, mulching it, keeping it moist in there, and then just topping off and adding to it. So we mulched this bed really heavy and we planted it no matter what, because the number one way to get aeration into the soil and to break it up is to grow stuff in it, right? And then to cut the roots off, leave the roots in there, let them decompose, and then have stuff working around that area. So the other day when I was pulling up all the white mold stuff, I pulled up one of the old cauliflowers that I left in. And when I did that, I thought to myself, well, I'm just gonna leave the roots. And then I started second guessing. I was like, no, let me pull them up in case it's got the mold on it. And when I pulled it up, there's like 8 worms on it. So it was working in that area. So that's the whole point back here, is even though we're not getting fantastic growth, we need to keep planting in it, keep growing in it, and have real expectations for this garden. I'm gonna fully plant this garden like it's gonna produce, but I'm also going to expect it not to produce as well as it could. And that's gonna be okay. But I'm gonna be able to focus on this, work on it, fork it. If I have to, I'll till it just to kind of churn it up and get it moving, get it growing, get it loosened up. And even though I know if I till it, it'll compact it more, I understand that, but it's like a short-term thing. And I won't till it deep, but I'll just till the top inch or so just to kind of keep it going, get those plants in there and get them working it. And then that will help this section get under control better. Thought last year, I seriously thought about adding another greenhouse, and I specifically, the spot that I would add it would be right there. That's the spot I would add it. But I didn't do it because I need to make sure that I've got the first greenhouse going good. You know what I mean? It's kind of a tough situation. And so I know you're thinking like, well, I'll just risk it for the biscuit, but is it worth it? Like sometimes it's not. I mean, truth be told, I've got plenty of garden beds. I've got plenty of options. I can add containers if I want. They're pretty self-contained and controlled. So I can do that to grow more. And then that will leave me plenty of stuff to grow on, work on the watering situation in my garden, work on the compaction, and then we're good. Now I've been working on this watering situation for the past month and a half. So we're coming to the very end. Actually today I'll be done with it. As soon as I'm gonna replace that hose. And then I've got a couple fittings that I've got to order. I didn't order right, of course, so I've got to get a couple more fittings. So it's in place and it's good. There's no leaks, but there's stuff that I have to work on. Maybe, just maybe, it's a good idea to slow down, enjoy your garden, get it under control, get your house in order, and just take care of it the way it's supposed to be and get the problems that you have figured out. If you've had a bad disease, if you've had bad insect outbreaks or weeds or anything that's really been an issue, don't go ahead and just get rid of it, and don't go ahead and just add a new garden, and don't just scrap the old garden, just work out the kinks. So that's all I can tell you. Now that's what I'm doing in my garden. What you do in yours is you do you, and you do it the best way you can, and you're gonna be happy no matter what. But for me, I need it to be under control. So if I do expand in any way, I'm more comfortable about it, and I can focus on that a little bit better. So the improvements I've done to the greenhouse in the fall have really helped. Adding the watering helped. And you can see clearly that adding in the soil and the mulch and stuff has helped that garden bed. And if I had to imagine, we probably have another year of doing that before that garden gets right. And that's okay, because truth be told, we have 9 garden beds in a greenhouse to grow out of. We got plenty. Now I have been working on a couple things. I just sowed some turnip seeds in this bed right here, and I used a new seeder. And so once they come up, and I see the spacing on the seeder and how it worked, I'll bring it to your attention and see how it works. I'm not so sure how it was. I couldn't really see the seeds going in, so there is that, but it eliminates having to bend over, and it makes it a lot easier, so hopefully it works out good. And I did turnips and carrots with it, so we'll see how the spacing ends up. Other than that, I'm getting ready for spring, and I'm gonna go fix that garden bed, and then I'm gonna go ahead and plant some broccoli and cabbage.